The starship Horizon floated silently through the darkness of space, its sleek hull gleaming under the light of distant stars. Commander Jack Porter stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the vast emptiness ahead. After 3 weeks of travel, beyond the solar system, the ship had reached Alpha Centauri, making this the farthest human expedition in history. "All systems normal, Commander," said Lisa Wright, the communications officer. Her fingers moved quickly across the glowing control panel. "No unusual signals detected." Jack nodded. This mission marked humanity's first serious venture into interstellar space. The year 2157 had brought many advances. Colonies on Mars and Europa were thriving, and the discovery of faster-than-light travel had opened the galaxy to exploration. "Keep scanning," Jack ordered. Science team continued data collection on the star system. Alan Morris, the science officer, looked up from his station. "Commander, there's something unusual about the radiation patterns near the fourth planet. I recommend we move closer for better readings." The bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency as the Horizon changed course. Humanity had come far in the century since the first Mars landing. United under the Earth Space Command, people had set aside old conflicts to reach for the stars. "Sir!" Lisa's voice cut through the quiet hum of the ship. "I'm detecting an energy signature ahead. It's not natural." The crew fell silent. Jack leaned forward in his chair. "Put it on screen." The main display flickered to life, showing a distant object moving against the backdrop of stars. It was clearly artificial. A massive ship with an odd, angular design unlike anything built by human hands. "First contact," Jack whispered. The weight of the moment pressed down on everyone present. Humanity was not alone. "They're changing course," reported Navigator Samantha Bell. "They're heading directly toward us." Jack stood up. "Lisa, prepare first contact protocols. Open all standard greeting channels." Minutes passed in tense silence as the alien vessel grew larger on their screens. It dwarfed the Horizon, easily 5 times their size. Message prepared and broadcasting. "On all frequencies, sir," Lisa said. Her voice remained professional despite the historic moment. "The universal mathematical greeting sequence is running, followed by basic language introduction packets." For several long minutes there was no response. Then Lisa's console lit up. "They're responding," she announced. "Receiving data burst. It appears to be... I think it's a language package." "Route it through the computer for translation," Jack ordered. The ship's AI worked quickly, finding patterns in the alien transmission. Soon, broken words appeared on their screens. "Human vessel. You enter Vraxian space. Submit to scan." "Tell them we come in peace," Jack said. "Explain that we are explorers from Earth on a mission of discovery." Lisa sent the message. The response came faster this time. "Scans complete. Your technology primitive, your species unknown. You will submit to Vraxian hegemony authority." The atmosphere on the bridge grew tense. This was not how they had imagined first contact. "Sir," Alan said, quietly from his science station. "I'm analyzing their ship design and energy outputs. Their weapons systems are active and appear to be charging." Jack's mind raced. "Lisa, explain that we wish for peaceful relations and knowledge exchange. Tell them we represent the united people of Earth and our colonies." The alien ship continued to approach. Their next message was clear and chilling. "Human vessel. The Vraxian hegemony claims your species for integration. Resistance brings destruction. 17 species serve us. You will be 18. "They're targeting us," Alan shouted. "Evasive maneuvers," Jack ordered. "Samantha, get us out of here." The Horizon lurched as Samantha engaged the engines at full power. A brilliant beam of energy shot from the alien vessel, grazing their shields. The ship shuddered violently. "Direct hit to our port side," called out Chief Engineer Paul Martinez from the engine room over the comm system. "Shield generators damaged. We can't take another hit like that." "Sir, I've been accessing their transmitted data," Alan reported, fingers flying across his console. "These Vraxians, they're conquerors. They've subjugated multiple species across this sector. They're not here to make friends. Another blast rocked the ship. Warning lights flashed across every console. FTL drive damaged, Paul reported. We can't jump home. Jack made a quick decision. Samantha, set course for that asteroid field. We might lose them there. The horizon accelerated toward a dense cluster of space rocks, the massive Vraxian ship following close behind. Samantha's skilled hands guided them through the dangerous field while the alien vessel fired repeatedly. They're too big to follow. Us through the tightest clusters, Samantha said, sweat beading on her forehead as she navigated the treacherous path. Sir, Lisa called out, they're broadcasting again. They say they've analyzed our navigation data. They know the location of Earth. Jack felt a cold dread settle in his stomach. Paul, I need that FTL drive working. We have to warn Earth. I'm trying something unconventional, Paul replied. If I reroute power from life support and shields, I might get you one jump. But it's risky. Do it, Jack ordered without hesitation. Minutes stretched like hours as they dodged through the asteroid field, taking hit after hit from the Vraxian weapons. The ship groaned around them, systems failing one by one. FTL ready, Paul finally announced. But we've got one shot at this. The system will burn out completely afterward. Take us home, Samantha, Jack commanded. The stars stretched around them as the damaged ship jumped to faster-than-light speed. The violent shaking suggested the engines were coming apart, but they held just long enough. When the horizon dropped back into normal space near Mars Colony, it was barely functioning. Emergency signals blared as Jack opened a channel to Earth, Space Command Headquarters. This is Commander Jack Porter of the UESC Horizon, he transmitted. First contact mission critical failure. Hostile alien species designated Vraxian hegemony encountered. They have our coordinates. They're coming. As medical teams treated the injured crew and repair ships approached to tow them home, Jack stared out at the familiar sight of Mars, and beyond it, the distant blue dot of Earth. He realized that everything had changed. Humanity had dreamed of finding others among the stars. Now they had, and those others wanted to conquer them. The fight for human survival had begun, and the Vraxians had no idea what they had just started by picking a fight with humanity. 6 months had passed since the horizon limped back to Earth with its warning. The world had changed forever. Admiral Nancy Coleman stood at the window of the orbital command station, watching the newly built warships gather in Earth's orbit. The ships were unlike anything humans had built before, sleeker, deadlier, designed specifically to fight the Vraxian threat. Latest production numbers, Admiral, said her aide, handing her a tablet. The Mars shipyards have exceeded their quotas this month, Nancy nodded. The Human Defense Alliance had been formed within days of the Horizon's return. Old national boundaries had quickly become meaningless in the face of extinction. Now, all of Earth's resources were dedicated to a single purpose: survival. And the new shield technology? She asked. Daniel Hayes and his team have successfully adapted it based on what we learned from the Horizon encounter. The new shields should be more effective against Vraxian weapons. In a research facility beneath the Pacific Ocean, Daniel Hayes hadn't slept properly in weeks. His lab was filled with salvaged parts from the damaged Horizon and simulations of Vraxian weapon signatures. Dark circles hung under his eyes, but excitement kept him going. Run the test again, he told his team. Increase power by 15%. The simulation showed a Vraxian energy beam hitting their new shield design. The shield held longer than before. We're getting there, Daniel said. Their weapons operate on a frequency we've never seen before, but we're adapting. Elsewhere, in the facility, Intelligence Officer Kevin Hill sat surrounded by holographic displays showing Vraxian ship movements. For months, he had studied every second of sensor data from the Horizon encounter. They always attack in formations of 3, he explained to a group of ship captains. Their battle computers seem to operate on predictable algorithms. They expect the same from their enemies. Captain Laura Barnes raised her hand. So they're not used to improvisation? Kevin nodded. Exactly. Their tactics suggest they've fought opponents who think like they do. They don't adapt well to unexpected maneuvers. In a converted stadium in what used to be called Texas, thousands of civilians trained with new weapons. Among them was Frank Russell, once a reporter, now a soldier like everyone else capable of fighting. "Keep your groups tight," shouted the instructor. "Remember, we don't know if they'll land ground forces, but we need to be ready for anything." Frank wiped sweat from his brow. 6 months ago, he had been writing about celebrity gossip. Now, he was learning how to fight aliens. The world had united in a way he never thought possible. Old enemies worked side by side. Resources were shared. Everyone had a job. At the United Nations building in New York, now serving as the HDA Central Headquarters, world leaders gathered around a large table. Screens showed the latest defense preparations. "The lunar base has been converted to a long-range detection post," reported one general. "We should have weeks of warning when they arrive." "What about evacuation plans?" asked another leader. "Should we consider moving people to the deep underground shelters?" Before anyone could answer, the doors burst open. A young scientist rushed in, ignoring the security protocols. "We've made a discovery," he announced breathlessly. "It's about human brainwaves." The leaders looked confused, but motioned for him to continue. "We've been studying why the Vraxians seem surprised by the Horizon's escape tactics," the scientist explained. "We think human neurological patterns are fundamentally different from the species they've encountered before. Our thought processes are more chaotic, less predictable." A murmur went through the room. "You're saying our unpredictability might be an advantage?" asked one leader. "Potentially our greatest advantage," the scientist replied. The news spread across defense networks, bringing a small ray of hope. Humanity might be technologically outmatched, but perhaps they had other strengths the Vraxians couldn't anticipate. In orbit above Mars, the early warning station operators saw it first. Strange energy readings at the edge of the solar system. Within minutes, alarms sounded across Earth and its colonies. "This is not a drill," announced Admiral Coleman's voice over global communications. "All defensive forces to battle stations, civilian populations to designated shelters. They're here." Space telescopes showed the first Vraxian ships entering the system, sleek and angular scout vessels moving with terrifying speed. "Just scouts," Kevin Hill noted, watching from command headquarters. "They're testing our defenses before committing their main fleet." Admiral Coleman made her decision quickly. "Launch Intercept Group 1. Let's show them we're not the easy prey they're expecting." Earth's first combat vessels, built specifically for this moment, moved into position. Their captains were the best pilots humanity had to offer, their crews trained relentlessly for this day. Captain William Clark commanded the lead vessel, the Defiance. His hands were steady on the controls as he addressed his crew. "Remember your training. They expect us to behave according to their logic. Our job is to confuse and disrupt. Use the tactics we've practiced." The human ships spread out in a pattern that would appear random to Vraxian sensors. The alien scouts approached with obvious confidence, moving into their standard attack formation. "Weapons hot," ordered William. "Execute Maneuver Chaos 1. The human ships suddenly accelerated at different angles, breaking all conventional space combat doctrine. The Vraxian vessels hesitated, their programmed responses failing to account for what appeared to be madness. The battle was brief, but violent. 2 human ships were lost, but all 5 Vraxian scouts were destroyed or disabled. "We got one intact," reported a recovery team. "Bringing it to the Jupiter Research Station." The victory was small but significant. Humanity had drawn first blood. In her command center, Admiral Coleman received the reports with cautious optimism. This was just their scouts. The main fleet will be more difficult. But we've proven we can fight back. On a secure channel, she contacted Diplomatic Officer Gary Mitchell, who had been working on another critical mission. "Any progress contacting the other species mentioned in the Vraxian transmission?" she asked. Gary's face appeared on screen, tired but excited. "Yes, Admiral. We've established communication with representatives from 3 subjugated races. They're cautious but interested in our resistance. They never thought anyone would stand against the hegemony. "We need allies," Nancy said simply. "We need to know everything they can tell us about our enemy." As she ended the transmission, a new alert sounded. More Vraxian ships had entered the system, dozens this time, moving toward Earth. The real war was about to begin. Across the planet and throughout the colonies, humans prepared themselves. They were outgunned and outnumbered, facing an enemy that had conquered 17 other civilizations. But they had something the Vraxians had never encountered before: the unpredictable, relentless spirit of humanity that refused to submit. The Vraxians had made a critical mistake. They had picked a fight with the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The battle for Jupiter's orbit was reaching its climax. Human ships darted between the massive gas giants' moons, using the natural satellites for cover against the larger Vraxian vessels. Captain Laura Barnes guided her ship, the Intrepid, through a narrow gap between two Vraxian cruisers, her weapons firing in rapid succession. "Their shields are dropping," her weapons officer called out. "All power to forward guns," Laura ordered. The Intrepid shuddered as it released a full volley into the nearest enemy vessel. The Vraxian ship's hull split open, venting atmosphere and debris into space. 3 months had passed since the first Vraxian scouts entered the solar system. What began as a desperate defense had evolved into something the aliens clearly hadn't expected: effective resistance. "Admiral Coleman is signaling," Laura's communications officer reported. "The Vraxians are falling back. They're retreating from Jupiter." Cheers erupted across the bridge. This wasn't just a minor skirmish one. This was the first major battle, where humanity had decisively beaten the Vraxian forces. At the main fleet headquarters orbiting Earth, Admiral Nancy Coleman watched the tactical displays with guarded satisfaction. The Jupiter defense had worked exactly as William Clark had planned. The military strategist stood beside her, his face betraying no emotion as he watched his unconventional tactics succeed. "They still think in straight lines," William explained. "Their battle computers can't adapt to our methods fast enough." Nancy nodded. "But they'll learn. We need to keep changing our approach." "That's why I've already drafted 12 new battle strategies," William replied, each one more unusual than the last. In a research lab on Europa, engineer Maria Rodriguez put the finishing touches on her newest creation. For weeks she had been studying the captured Vraxian scout ship, learning how their systems worked. "Run the simulation again," she told her team. The computer screen showed her virus spreading through a simulated Vraxian network, disabling key systems one by one. "It works!" exclaimed her assistant. "Their security protocols can't detect it." Maria allowed herself a small smile. "Now we need to find a way to deliver it to their main communication hub." The door to her lab slid open, and Captain Laura Barnes walked in, still wearing her flight suit from the Jupiter battle. "I hear you need someone to make a delivery," Laura said. Far from Earth, deep in the asteroid belt, a small stealth ship moved silently between the floating rocks. Inside, a team of special operatives led by Captain Laura prepared for their mission. "Our intelligence from the other subjugated species indicates that the Vraxians have established their local command center on one of the outer moons of Saturn," Laura explained to her team. "We insert Maria's virus there, and it will spread to every Vraxian ship in the system." The plan was dangerous, perhaps suicidal, but no one objected. Humanity had learned quickly that conventional warfare wouldn't be enough against the technologically superior Vraxians. They needed to be clever. They needed to be unpredictable. Meanwhile, on Earth, diplomatic officer Gary Mitchell sat in a secure room with representatives from 3 alien species, all former victims of Vraxian conquest. The aliens looked nothing like humans. One was insect-like, another resembled a tall plant, and the third appeared to be made of crystalline structures. But their situation united them. "For 200 years, my people have served as slaves to the Vraxian fleet maintenance crews," the insect-like alien explained through a translator device. "We never thought resistance was possible." "Humans fight differently," Gary said simply. "We don't follow their rules of engagement." "We have seen this," agreed the crystalline being. Our observers report that your ships move in ways that make no sense to Vraxian battle computers. That's intentional, Gary explained. We've found that unpredictability is our greatest weapon. The plant-like alien leaned forward. If you can truly drive the Vraxians from your system, others will join you. Many species wait for a sign that the hegemony can be defeated. Bake. In space, Laura's stealth mission had reached the Vraxian command center. The alien structure orbited Saturn's moon Titan, a massive ring-shaped station bristling with weapons. Security is heavier than we expected, Laura whispered, watching through the view screen as Vraxian patrol ships circled the station. Her pilot, a young man who had been a commercial shuttle driver just 6 months ago, studied the patterns. There's a gap in their sensor coverage every 8 minutes when that large patrol ship passes the main hub. Laura nodded. That's our window. Get us as close as you can. When the moment came, their small ship darted forward, using the patrol ship's own energy signature as cover. They docked at an emergency airlock, forcing it open with tools designed based on the captured scout ship. We have 15 minutes before they detect us, Laura told her team as they entered the alien station. Move fast. The inside of the Vraxian command center was unlike anything humans had seen before. Angular corridors lit with pulsing blue light, and strange symbols covering the walls. They moved quietly, following the schematics provided by their alien allies. There, Laura pointed to a large door. That should be their main communications hub. 2 Vraxian guards stood outside. This was humanity's first close look at their enemy. Tall, with gray skin and 4 arms, their faces covered by breathing masks that suggested they required different atmospheric conditions than humans. Laura's team took them down quickly and silently with stun weapons. Inside the communications room, they found banks of alien computers. Maria said to connect the device here, Laura explained, placing a small human-made device onto the central console. The device lit up, indicating it had begun transmitting the virus. Alarms suddenly blared throughout the station. They've detected us, Laura said calmly. Let's go. The retreat was chaotic, running firefights through narrow corridors, Vraxian troops converging from all directions. 2 of Laura's team fell, but the rest made it back to their ship. As they disengaged from the station, Laura looked back. Did we succeed? Her technician checked the signals. The virus is transmitting. It's already spread to 17% of their network. Across the solar system, Vraxian ships suddenly lost power. Communication systems failed. Weapons went offline. The carefully coordinated Vraxian fleet fell into disarray. Admiral Coleman watched from Earth as the tactical situation transformed. Launch all reserve forces, she ordered. Hit them while they're vulnerable. The battle that followed was the largest humanity had ever fought. Ships clashed from Mercury to Neptune. The Vraxians, confused and unable to coordinate, fought with decreasing effectiveness as the virus spread through their network. When it was over, the remains of the Vraxian fleet retreated beyond Pluto, leaving behind destroyed ships and stations. Humanity had won its first decisive victory. In her command center, Admiral Coleman addressed the leaders of Earth. We've bloodied their nose, but this isn't over. Our intelligence suggests they're calling for reinforcements. But we've proven something important today. The Vraxians can be beaten. On screens across Earth and the colonies, humans celebrated. For the first time since the Horizon's return, hope was more than just a word. It was becoming a reality. And, in deep space, the retreating Vraxian commander sent a message to his superiors. The humans fight like no species we have encountered before. Exercise caution. These creatures are dangerous. 1 year after the first Vraxian ship entered the solar system, humanity was no longer fighting for mere survival. Now, they were taking the war to the enemy. General Susan White stood on the bridge of the Earth flagship Defiance, looking at the holographic display of stars. Around her, a fleet of 117 human warships prepared for humanity's first journey beyond their home system as an attacking force. All ships report ready, General, her aide said. Susan nodded. Begin the jump sequence. Across the fleet, FTL drives powered up. The stars blurred as the human armada leapt across space toward Vraxian territory. This mission had been months in planning, a direct assault on the Vraxian supply lines that supported their ongoing war against Earth. The plan was the work of many minds. William Clark had designed the attack strategy, Admiral Coleman had organized the fleet, and most importantly, their alien allies had provided the coordinates and intelligence needed to strike directly at the heart of Vraxian logistics. "Jumping complete," announced the navigation officer. "We've arrived at the target coordinates." Before them floated a massive space station, a Vraxian supply depot that served as a staging point for ships headed to Earth. The aliens had not expected humans to bring the fight to them so quickly. There were only minimal defenses. "All ships engage as planned," Susan ordered. The human fleet split into 3 groups, each attacking from a different angle. The Vraxian defenders scrambled to respond, but they were overwhelmed by the coordinated assault. On the planet below, members of the crystal species who had allied with Earth saw the battle in orbit and took action. After generations of subjugation, they seized Vraxian control centers and communication hubs. "We're receiving a transmission from the surface," reported Susan's communications officer. "The local resistance has taken control of the main planetary defenses." Susan smiled. "Tell them we'll have this station secured within the hour." Meanwhile, in a research facility on Mars, scientist Peter Johnson made a discovery that would change the course of the war. For months, he had been studying Vraxian biology from tissue samples recovered from battle sites. "Look at this," he told his colleague, pointing to a microscope display. "When exposed to certain Earth bacteria, their cellular structure breaks down rapidly." His colleague leaned closer. "You're saying they're vulnerable to our bacteria?" "Not all of them," Peter clarified. "But there's a common soil bacteria that seems particularly effective. It's harmless to humans and our alien allies, but devastating to Vraxian physiology." The discovery was quickly reported to Earth Command. If weaponized properly, it could provide a new tool in humanity's arsenal, one the Vraxians would never expect. Deeper in Vraxian territory, Major Carl Davis led a small team of special forces on an even more daring mission. Their ship was designed to look like a Vraxian transport, allowing them to approach the headquarters of the Vraxian military command. "Remember, we only need to place the transmitters and leave," Carl told his team as they prepared to board the massive station. "The devices will do the rest." The transmitters were the work of Maria Rodriguez, improved versions of her original virus delivery system. Once activated, they would send false orders to Vraxian ships throughout the sector, creating chaos in their carefully organized fleet movements. Carl's team moved through the Vraxian command station with practiced stealth. They had trained for months in simulated environments based on intelligence from their alien allies. Still, the actual station was even more imposing than expected. A vast complex of interconnected chambers filled with Vraxian military personnel. "First transmitter placed," whispered one of Carl's team over their secure comm channel. "Second transmitter in position," reported another. They had nearly completed their mission when a Vraxian security patrol turned a corner unexpectedly. There was a brief, intense firefight. Carl and most of his team escaped, but 2 were captured. "We have to go back for them," Carl insisted as they regrouped in a maintenance tunnel. "The mission comes first," his second-in-command reminded him. "The transmitters are all in place. We need to activate them and leave." Carl knew she was right, but the thought of leaving team members behind went against everything he believed. "We'll trigger the transmitters, then find our people." When the devices activated, alarms blared throughout the station. Vraxian troops ran in all directions, responding to false emergency signals. In the confusion, Carl's team managed to locate and free their captured members. As they escaped in their disguised ship, they could see Vraxian vessels throughout the system changing course, responding to phantom threats and false orders. "Mission accomplished," Carl reported when they reached safe space. "The Vraxian command structure is in disarray." Taking advantage of the confusion, Alliance Fleet Commander Olivia Grant led the main human attack force toward the Vraxian Central Command world. Dozens of ships from formerly subjugated species had joined the human fleet, forming the largest coalition the galaxy had seen in centuries. "The Vraxians are scrambling their defense fleet," reported Olivia's tactical officer. "But they're disorganized. Many of their ships are responding to the false commands." Olivia nodded. "Begin Phase 2 of the assault." The battle that followed was the largest of the war so far. Human ships, using unpredictable maneuvers that confused Vraxian targeting computers, broke through the outer defenses. Ships from the crystal species and the plant-like aliens attacked from different vectors, forcing the Vraxians to divide their attention. In the midst of the battle, specially equipped vessels released Peter Johnson's bacterial weapon into the atmospheres of Vraxian ships and stations. The effects were immediate. Environmental systems failed as the bacteria multiplied, forcing Vraxian crews to abandon their posts. From her command ship, Olivia watched as the Vraxian lines collapsed. "Their flagship is retreating," she announced to her fleet. "Press the advantage." The Vraxian leadership, never before challenged so, directly fled their command world. Across their territory, news of the defeat spread rapidly. Subjugated species who had watched humanity's resistance with growing interest now rose up in open rebellion. On a dozen worlds, Vraxian control centers fell to local uprisings. Supply ships were seized. Military outposts surrendered to overwhelming numbers of formerly docile servants. When the reports reached Earth, Admiral Coleman addressed the United Earth government. "The counteroffensive has exceeded all expectations. The Vraxians are falling back on all fronts. For the first time, we have them on the defensive." Celebrations erupted across human colonies. The species that had threatened to add humanity to their list of conquests was now fighting for its own survival. But in her private office, Admiral Coleman studied the latest intelligence with concern. "They're gathering their remaining forces for a last stand at their homeworld," she told her staff. "And they're desperate. A cornered enemy is always the most dangerous." The final phase of the war was about to begin. Humanity and its allies prepared for the greatest challenge yet, a direct assault on the heart of the Vraxian hegemony. The Vraxian homeworld hung in space like a jewel, a green and blue planet not unlike Earth, orbited by 3 moons and protected by the largest defensive fleet ever assembled. 2 years after the first contact between humans and Vraxians, the final battle for the galaxy's future was about to begin. Admiral Nancy Coleman stood on the bridge of the flagship Horizon 2, named in honor of the ship that had first encountered the Vraxians. Behind her stretched the combined forces of humanity and 26 formerly subjugated species, a massive armada united by a common goal: freedom from Vraxian rule. "We're receiving the final intelligence reports from our advanced scouts," her aide reported. "The Vraxians have gathered their entire remaining fleet to defend their homeworld." Nancy studied the tactical display. "As expected, they've abandoned their outer colonies to make a final stand here." The plan they had developed was risky but necessary. A direct assault on such heavy defenses would result in unacceptable losses. Instead, they would use every advantage they had discovered during the Long War. In a separate vessel, Ambassador Diane Miller prepared for her role in the coming battle. For months, she had been in secret communication with a faction within Vraxian society, separatists who opposed the war and the policies of the hegemony. "The separatist leader confirms they're ready to act when our forces engage the defenses," Diane told Admiral Coleman via secure channel. "They can disable the planetary shield generators from the surface, but they'll need precise timing." Elsewhere in the fleet, Professor Henry Collins worked with his team to finalize translations of Vraxian historical records recovered from conquered outposts. What they had discovered was shocking. According to these records, the Vraxians have conquered over 300 worlds in the past 5 centuries, Henry explained to the assembled military leaders. Their entire society is built around expansion and domination, which makes negotiating with them difficult, Diane added. Except for the separatist faction. Most Vraxians cannot imagine a galaxy where they don't rule over others. Admiral Coleman nodded. Then we need to help them imagine it. All ships prepare for battle. The human fleet moved forward, approaching the Vraxian defenses from multiple angles. They had learned that unpredictability was their greatest weapon, and their attack pattern reflected this. Ships moving in seemingly random directions that confounded Vraxian battle computers. The Vraxian fleet responded with overwhelming firepower. Energy beams and plasma torpedoes streaked across space. The first line of human ships took heavy damage. "Enemy vessels moving to intercept our main force," reported the tactical officer. Admiral Coleman watched calmly. "Just as planned. Signal Special Forces Group 1. Hidden among the debris of earlier battles, Major Carl Davis and his team activated their engines. Their small, stealthy vessels slipped past the Vraxian front lines, heading for the orbital defense platforms. "Remember, we need to take at least 3 platforms intact," Carl reminded his team. "Plant the virus, don't destroy the systems." As the Special Forces began their mission, General Susan White led the second phase of the attack. Her ships released clouds of engineered bacteria, developed by Peter Johnson. The microscopic weapons spread through the Vraxian fleet, disabling life support systems and forcing many ships to withdraw. On the planet below, Ambassador Diane's separatist allies moved against the planetary shield generators. Fighting broke out in the capital city as Vraxians fought Vraxians for the first time in centuries. "The shield is fluctuating," reported Diane, monitoring the separatist communications. "They've taken control of 2 generator stations, but they're facing heavy resistance at the third." The battle in space intensified. Human ships, smaller and more maneuverable than their Vraxian counterparts, darted between the enemy vessels, causing confusion and drawing fire away from their allies. Ships from the crystal species used their natural resistance to energy weapons to absorb hits that would have destroyed others. Major Carl's team successfully captured 3 defense platforms, uploading Maria Rodriguez's improved virus into their systems. The massive orbital weapons turned, now targeting Vraxian ships instead of the Alliance fleet. "The tide is turning," Admiral Coleman observed as Vraxian formations began to break apart. "Signal Alliance Commander Olivia Grant to begin the final push." Olivia's ships, held in reserve until now, surged forward, breaking through the weakened Vraxian lines and heading directly for the flagship of the Hegemony's High Command, a massive vessel twice the size of any other in the Vraxian fleet. "Target their command ship's engines and weapons," Olivia ordered. "We want to capture, not destroy." On the surface, the Separatists finally secured the 3rd shield generator. The planetary shields collapsed completely, allowing Alliance landing craft to descend to key locations around the Vraxian capital. The Vraxian High Commander, watching his defenses crumble, made a desperate decision. "Prepare the doomsday weapon," he ordered his subordinates. "If we cannot rule, no one will have our world." But the order was intercepted by human intelligence officers monitoring Vraxian communications. "They're activating some kind of superweapon," the report quickly reached Admiral Coleman. "All ships, target these coordinates," she ordered, highlighting a massive structure on the planet's surface that their intelligence had previously identified as a research facility. Dozens of Alliance ships focused their fire on the facility. The resulting explosion lit up half the continent, but the weapon was destroyed before it could activate. In orbit, Olivia Grant's forces surrounded the Vraxian command ship. "Your defenses have fallen," she transmitted to the High Command. "Your weapon is destroyed. Surrender now and spare your people further suffering." For long minutes there was no response. Then, a different voice answered, older, calmer than the High Commanders. "This is Elder Council Speaker Tarek. I have assumed command following the removal of the High Commander. We wish to discuss terms of surrender." The fighting gradually ceased across the Vraxian homeworld and throughout the fleet. After centuries of expansion and domination, the Vraxian hegemony had been defeated. In the weeks that followed, representatives from all allied species gathered on the neutral ground of Europa to discuss the future. Ambassador Diane Miller led the human delegation as they worked to establish a new galactic council based on cooperation, rather than conquest. Professor Henry Collins continued his translations of Vraxian records, helping all species understand the history that had led to this moment. And Admiral Coleman, her duty fulfilled, watched as human ships began to return home. "What happens now?" asked a young officer as they observed the diplomatic proceedings. "Now comes the hard part," Nancy replied. "Winning a war is difficult. Building a lasting peace is even harder." But as she looked around at representatives from dozens of species working together, she felt hope. Humanity had not just survived, they had helped free hundreds of worlds and changed the course of galactic history. Throughout the galaxy, a new saying began to spread among the stars: "The most dangerous mistake in the universe is to pick a fight with humans." The Vraxians had learned this lesson the hard way, and the galaxy would never be the same again.